Hey, folks, and welcome to Bear Baiting Alaska. Thanks for joining us today. So, today's episode is going to focus around site selection of your bear bait, right? Site location. How do we determine, where is the best place to place a bait? The requirements surrounding bait locations. Then look at various terrain. Talking about cover, right? Cover for you, and as well as cover for the bears. Water access, bear sign and animal corridors, and then miscellaneous items such as prevailing winds where you set up, access to your site, and last but not least, land ownership. Right? Whose land am I setting up on? Whose land am I attracting bears to? Right? Is it public land or is it private land? Those things we're going to touch upon briefly here today. So let's get started. Let's talk about location requirements per the regulations. And anytime I refer to the regulations, I am talking about the Alaska hunting regulations. So I strongly suggest you get a copy, right, of a hard copy of the hunting regulations that pertain to your area, whether you're in Alaska or in another lower 48 or you're in a province in Canada. Get the regs that apply. So you can get them from your trooper, from Fish and Game Office, from any outdoor retailer. There are various ways to get it. It's free again. So I'd get several copies. I like to have a copy in the truck, a copy in my backpack, a couple copies at the house, so I can flip through and see if anything changed or just refresh my memory on applicable regulations, or maybe I'm looking at a different game management unit I haven't hunted before, so I want to make sure I'm in line with that. Okay, so but for ease of application today, we're just going to go online. So Google Alaska hunting regulations and go to the ADF&G page, and there's a hunting regulations right here. I can download the entire booklet, or I can look at individual sections. And so certainly right here, there's a bear baiting tab. If I hit that tab, it takes me to a page that shows me what I can and cannot do for bear baiting. But I'm just going to scroll down a little further here to where it says information for all bear hunters. That's us, right? I'm going to click on that. And it's going to come to a page that has important information for all bear hunters. Now, I mean, these sections are essential. You need to know what they say. So read it all at your leisure. Talks about, salvage of bears, different seasons, right? You need to salvage. There are different salvage requirements for bears, both black and brown bears. It talks about different baits, what you can, and more importantly, what you cannot use as bait. So anyway, there's a whole host of information in here, essential to bear hunting and bear baiting. But if you scroll on down, there's a page specific, bear baiting seasons and requirements. And that tab we just talked about a second ago would take you right to this side. And so there are two columns. One is what the things you may do while bear baiting, and the other column, I think more importantly, is those items you may not do while bear baiting. So let's talk about the may nots, right? So you may not set up a bait station within 1 mile of a house, whether it's yours or someone else's. You can't be within a mile of a school, a business, a recreational facility, an established campground. You can't be within a mile of a permanent dwelling, including a seasonally occupied cabin, even if you own the cabin. You can't do it. And when I say can't, there's always exceptions, right? So read the directions. It says see page 27 for a list of the places this is allowed. So you'll want to check that out and see if the area you're hunting is in that exception area. Okay? And that's general guidelines. Now, also, just as important, right? You may not set up a bait station within 1/4 mile of the road, so a publicly maintained road or trail. And all these distances, by the way, are as the crow flies. Okay, use a GPS if you can. I've used the odometer on my four-wheeler and zigged and zagged up and down the mountain on old trap lines, and my odometer said it was 1.5 miles from the road, when in fact I was 0.8 miles from the road. I know that for a fact, so learn from my lessons and avoid those mishaps. Use a GPS. But again, you have to be at least 1/4 mile from the publicly maintained road or trail, 1/4 mile from the Alaska Railroad if you're in Alaska. and a quarter mile in some game management units from the pipeline, the oil pipeline, because some areas the pipeline is above ground, and they prefer you not shoot it by mistake. So again, there's other geographic restrictions here or exceptions. Take time once you figure out where you think you're going to hunt, go through the regs under that GMU, that game management unit, and look at those areas. But in a nutshell, those are the requirements as far as setting a bait and distances from certain locations. Critical. Okay, so let's next talk about terrain. How do we choose a location, and what things are we looking for, and what things are we making sure we don't engage in? So the page right here for bear baiting, there's a bear baiting clinic online on the ADF&G website. And under that, on that bear baiting clinic, there's also choosing a location. There's some great information here. And again, it's general information. There are exceptions to every rule, but these make a lot of sense, right? It says right here, look for natural travel corridors or valleys where bears access water. Be alert to ridge lines or descending hills that lead to water. Bears will be more comfortable coming into a site located in dense cover. Fairly thick brush, alders, or trees add a sense of security for bears. Well, all of that is true. All of that is true. So let's talk about that. Access to water. Do you need to be right on the water? Absolutely not. You don't need to be on a lake or a stream or a river or a pond. How I like to think of it is you should be in commuting distance of a water source of some kind. Bears travel long distances. I have friends who bait down the same valley I'm in 6 miles away, and in the same night they'll have the same bears on their camera that I have on mine. So I know those bears are traveling at least 12 miles round trip, probably further, right? Because these aren't the only bait sites, and yours is not the only bait site. So bears will travel from bait to bait. And on those days, or those unseasonably warm days in the spring, sometimes it's downright hot, and those bears will lay down. But when they get up, they're going to be looking for water. And so if you're closer to a water source than the next stand, they're going to come to your baits first, and they might stay there longer, right? Because they're searching for water. But they'll travel. So I'm just saying, proximity to water is great. So you can look. We'll talk about looking on Google Maps or Google Earth and see those water. How do you find water or look for water? But you don't need to be right on the water. It's more picturesque, but you don't need to be. Okay, so don't sweat it if you don't have a location right on the river or lake or stream. Okay, that's choosing a location. There's also, more importantly, or just again, I don't want to keep saying more importantly, just as important as a basic rule of thumb: avoid open areas such as large fields, sandbars, or beaches. Right. The bear's not going to be comfortable exposing itself in the middle of this giant field or plopping your barrel in the middle of the beach. I mean, there will be bears that will come, but most will be too cautious to come, or will just take too long and be spooked, or too many opportunities to spook that bear. So, nothing wrong with having it on the edge of a clearing. Some of my baits are on the edge of a clearing, but I still give the bears access to the trees, right? They can weave in and out. They can pop through the alders and pop up into the clearing and go to the bait. You also need a clearing to shoot through, right, of some kind. So keep that in mind, right? And some people are shooting long range, some people are shooting up close with their bows. So it all depends on the location. But generally speaking, right, you want to be providing cover of some kind near your bait where the bears can pop in and out. Again, there's not every bear is the same, but those are good general rules to live by, right? These are time tested, right? And field tested and field proven. So that's great advice. So and when you're scouting, when do you scout? Well, you can scout any time of the year, right? I like to think the fall is a good time, though during the fall, I'm always getting ready for Alaska winter, so I never get around to scouting, and I always plan to, but I never do. So, get out there when you can. The areas look different at different times of the year. I mean, here's a good example. Here's a picture. Here's my stand. I'm going to back up one to say, here's my stand in a location. That's April 1st, so 2 weeks before the season starts, I put my barrels out. Can't put any bait, but I'm setting up. The snow on the ground. Trees are bare, right? And then come a month later, this is the first week in May, still snow on the ground, but the grasses are starting to clear, trees are still bare. Okay, so keep this in mind. This is an area I hunt. On this side, there's a small stream that flows down into the river. The river is in the backside, and this is coming down the hillside. In the spring, I can actually hear it running. It's nice, but it's cold. So this is that spot. See that? There's my stand. Okay, and this is the hillside. That stream is right here flowing in the woods. A little further off, actually. It's right there. You can kind of see it flowing. This is May. This is the first weeks in May. And then there's a river back here it flows into. Again, it's great access, but my friends, again, my friend's bait is 6 miles this way. So, but again, now this spot here is this spot in early June, right? Here's early June. Here's the same spot now. Obviously different. So this is all those alders. There's about 10, 12 foot alders under here. This is about 8 feet of snow sitting on top of it in my location. So again, now there's June. So an area will look different at different times. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but some changes are dramatic. So as you're scouting out an area, okay. So now I'm looking for a different area. I'm going to be hunting in. I'm going to try hunting in Southeast. I've never done that before, so I'm going to go to Southeast. And what I usually do is I like Google Maps. It's free. People use Google Earth, Google Maps. I like Google Earth. It shows me the roads. I can see. I narrow in on places and see. Oh, I need a place to park my truck, right? What's the terrain like? I can close in on the road, and there's a pull off right there. My truck and trailer, right? There's access, and it gets into the woods. This lake though, but I looked up this lake. I'd never been to this lake. I looked it up, and it's a big tourist attraction. So something to think about. You need to do your research, right? Because I can hunt right here. A quarter mile is in these trees on this ridge. It's a great spot, right? But any given day, there's like 50 tourists here on a canoe trip. So I really don't want to be dragging dead bears out to the parking lot while I've got these 50 tourists enjoying their day in Alaska. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm just going to use common sense and say I'm going to do something else. So I'm going to move down here a little further. But more importantly than just picking out my location is I need to know who owns it. So I like Onyx Maps. I'm not promoting Onyx Maps above anything else. I don't get compensated. I just like it. It shows who owns the land. So I can go and click on here and say, oh, okay, well, there's a spot I was looking at. There's the lake. The whole south side of the lake is owned by a native corporation. So I can't hunt there unless, I talk to them and I pay for a permit or I get special permission, right? I can hunt all north because it's DNR, Department of Natural Resources. I can hunt up there. Or the location I'm thinking of hunting down here, I'm going to go off the road. Right, I'm going to go off the road down here a little bit. Right here in the green, if the Tongass National Forest, right? That's National Forest, so I can hunt off that. I've already scouted, done the distance because there's a scale on here, and I'm going to set up in this clearing here. It's over a quarter mile away off the road, and I'm still good. This is native land. This is Tongass. It's National Forest, so I can hunt right there. So that's how I use that area. But again, nothing beats boots on the ground. So I could get there and find this inaccessible. I could park here and say, well, I can't even get to here. Maybe it's bogged down. Maybe it's marshy. Who knows? I don't know until you get there. So, or there could be another. I could get there and be a guy set up or gal set up right here or here, right? So have plan B, have plan C. And think about that. One thing I do want to mention I didn't offer before is thermals. When you're setting up, right? Think about thermals and wind direction, scent. If you look up thermal winds around mountains, it comes up with quick basic terms. Morning thermals created by cool temperatures that spur air to descend down the mountain, right? In the morning, as the sun and daytime temperatures warm surrounding surface, thermals begin upslope much of the day toward nightfall. So think about that when you're placing your baits, okay? And I wish you all luck. I hope this helped. Something to think about. And can't wait to get out there again. We're about 2 weeks out, or 2 months. I wish it was 2 weeks. We're about 2 months out from season. So take care of yourselves. Be safe, and I'll see you later.